Do y'all think that the better team won, or was this just a bad game?
They got a cloud hanging over their head.
You execute when you're supposed to execute, and we didn't do that. They were the better team in that game.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Pigskins and Pageantry. We are hurtling towards the end of the season faster than I can comprehend.
I rebuke it in the name of the Lord. No.
Case in point, it's almost November. So,
but I refuse to let go of October.
Right? Yeah, I agree. I'm there with you.
Dude, it's 90 degrees yesterday in Georgia. It's not. Right. No, it's not October.
It certainly doesn't feel like. Yeah. But things are coming to a head in the college football season, and I'm here for all the chaos. Although the fun chaos I was talking about with Army and Navy took a little bit of a plunge last weekend with the potential for undefeateds. But I digress. First, let's check in with our co-host, Jesse. How's it going?
I'm feeling much better this week. After a shutout against Drinky, it does something to lift your spirits. It's almost like a little pumpkin spice latte for football.
It does have to make you feel all warm and fuzzy on the inside. Matt, how's it going?
It's been a week and it's only Monday. It's going okay. I'm feeling pretty good. You know, I got the bye week, got a chance to kind of relax and not have to stress about ball games this weekend. But yeah, like things are well. Things are good. We'll talk about them though.
I hear you. Yep, let's go ahead and get into those games from last week.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
That's right. All right, well, so the first game that we have is Oklahoma at Ole Miss. Ole Miss winning this one 26-14. I got the point here. The battle of the Jacksons at quarterback. One spelled the regular way and one spelled the bougie way. Ole Miss without Trey Harris in this one. So that was a little bit rough on their offense, although I still thought they might be able to do a little bit more than they were able to in this one. Oklahoma's offense looked a little bit better in this one, but they're without their top 5 receivers. It's kind of hard to overcome. I was just thinking about that. You take any team and you take away their top 5 receivers and just watch what happens.
You take away 2 of their top receivers and they're probably going to be struggling to move the ball.
Yeah, so that was a rough one. Let's see. Let's start with Jesse in this one. What do you got on this one?
Yeah, it seemed like you said, Oklahoma, it was a vulnerability in the air. You know, they weren't really able to get anything going. They had started off with some signs of life, but then it was like Ole Miss at halftime made some adjustments that they needed to make. They were able to get their pass game going. So for me, I was surprised at the slow start of Ole Miss. That was a little bit of a concern. But then once they got their passing game going, it seemed like they were able to kind of take care of things.
Yeah. Matt?
I was actually kind of impressed. Oklahoma came out fire, and it looked like they were going to make it a pretty close game. And I mean, they did keep it close. It's just when you come out and give up 2 big touchdowns to start the second half, because football is all about adjustments and it's all about momentum. And as a result, you know, Ole Miss is able to keep that momentum in the second half. Also, kudos to Ole Miss because they got 10 sacks in this game, which is astronomically a lot. I haven't seen a lot of football in my time. I know that's surprising, but when you sack the quarterback 10 times, that means you've got it schemed up properly, and you're giving that offensive line some fits. And Oklahoma just could not keep up, and Ole Miss continues to roll on at 6-2. So
that they do. All right, let's move to Texas at Vanderbilt. Texas winning this one 27-24. Close one. I got the point here. Texas got out to a 21-7 lead in the second quarter, but Vandy just wouldn't go away as they are wont to do this year. Vandy was able to take a Quinn Ewers interception, turn it into 7 points in the third quarter, and they climbed all the way back to 27-24, but it was late, and they had to do an onside kick and couldn't recover it. So Texas survives this one, but still sort of remains a question mark, I think. Matt, what do you think?
What's the phrase that they used on America's Top Model? We were rooting for you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think it's safe to say that Vandy, we were rooting for you. Let me be very frank here. I'm a Tennessee fan. I hate Vanderbilt. Nothing good ever comes out of Nashville, in my opinion. But I will say that I was really, even their arbitorium. But don't get me started, Wes.
Arboretum.
Um, or whatever you want to call it. Shut up. I'm trying to analyze the game here, man. I'm working. Um, so listen, I was really hoping that Vandy would find a way, but they came up a little bit short. Very sloppy game for Texas. They gave up over 100 yards worth of penalties. I probably just stole Jesse's point she was going to mention in just a second. Quinn Ewers throws 2 picks. He looks okay. He has not looked the same since he came back from that injury that he sustained earlier in the season. He has like these flashes of brilliance, and then I just feel like he takes a couple steps back. It really would have been nice for Vandy to get a couple more offensive drives in this game, but unfortunately, they went 3 for 12 on third down. And if you're not converting on third down, your offense is on the sideline. There's not a lot you can do to score points. So, um, I think Clark Lee said that this was a culture win for them this week. It was a toughness win, and I agree with that to a point, but just a really missed opportunity for Vanderbilt to kind of take things to that next level, I feel.
Right. There were several moments in the game where it was almost kind of like, that magic just sort of
It was
fizzled
right
out.
there. It was right
Yeah,
there.
right there, but just fizzled out. Jesse, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, obviously I picked Vanderbilt mostly because I just was trying to will it to happen, to make Bama look better.
Hmm.
It literally almost happened, which is insane. I think that coming off of a loss to Georgia, it seemed like Texas was like, all right, we want to bounce back. We want to prove something. But like Matt said, it was very undisciplined, unfortunately. I don't think they made the statement that they wanted to make coming off of a loss. And that's not to discredit Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt did everything they could do for the most part. But one thing that I know the Texas fans have been talking about is Quinn Ewers. And like Matt said, he just hasn't looked the same. He got benched against Georgia, and then he throws a tip pass that landed in an interception in his first throw in this game. And then he obviously had another interception later on. But this is bringing back that kind of quarterback controversy in Austin. People are wondering, is Ewers going to do anything to silence that? Or are people going to continue to yell and want Arch Manning?
According to the Dr. Pepper commercial, he doesn't need any backup. So.
Exactly. Which, like, can we talk about how much shade that is? That's so much shade.
To be fair, hold on a minute. To be fair, I feel like Arch has a little bit of that coming, considering what happened during press days earlier.
A little bit.
So I mean, it's ticky tack, but I don't think anyone can say
fair. Ewers did finish with 288 yards, completed 27 of 37 passes, threw for 3 touchdowns, which again, those stats are good, but we're still not seeing the quarterback that we knew. So that's something that I think Texas fans are going to continue to keep a very close eye on. And I think they're going to have a lot of patience with, if I'm being honest. Not to say that Coach Sarkisian even cares, but at some point he might. The other takeaway, I think, is their offensive line did make very many improvements from the Georgia game to the Vanderbilt game. And don't get me wrong, I'm a Bama fan talking about this. So like right there with you. Okay. But it became an issue. The discipline on the offensive line, or lack thereof rather, is an issue. And so they gave up 4 sacks, as well as 9 tackles for losses. Come on, guys. We got to get better here. So I think we're starting to see a little bit of the chinks in the armor for Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And if teams watch this film, you may see them start to capitalize on this moving forward if Texas doesn't make adjustments.
Yeah.
But a win's a win.
A win is a win. We'll see. We've said that I think all of us have said that about our
we
own
live
teams.
by that mantra.
Yeah,
we have to, and we'll talk about it, I think, a little bit when we get to our interview. But just the way that college football is right now, a win is a win.
Yeah,
Like you have to celebrate it because we are in an era of college football where anything and everything can happen.
Yeah, I mean, when Georgia beat Kentucky, what was that, like 13-12 or whatever that horrible score was? I mean, I'm going to take it, whatever. It was ugly, but we'll take it. Let's move to Auburn at Kentucky. Auburn winning this one 24-10. Nobody got the point here because I mean, it's craziness this season. So Kentucky scored the first 10 points in this game, but then just sort of disappeared from just everything. Brock Vandegrift went 9 for 17 for 120 yards and an interception before being benched in the second half for Gavin Wimsatt. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. I don't know. He didn't do a ton better, obviously. Jarquez Hunter with a career high 278 yards on 23 carries and 2 touchdowns for Auburn. So props to him for that. Kentucky, to me, is just the ultimate roller coaster this year. I mean, you watch them one week and you're like, they've kind of got it together. They've figured some things out. And then the next week is like, you're like, what just happened? Jesse, what's your take?
I mean, my take is thank God that there's a lot of bourbon in Kentucky because I feel like their fans need it. This is
It's fair.
I don't get it. I really don't. It's not like they don't have talented players. They do. And it almost feels like there's just some complacency that's happening with coaching. I'm really not sure, but one stat or fact that stood out is Kentucky has not scored more than 20 points in an SEC game this season. No more than 20.
Ouch.
Their offense has no rhythm. I don't think it has an identity. And I think that's where so many of their struggles are coming from because they're relying a lot on kickers. And that's not fair. That's tough. I also think when we look at the other side of the ball, tackling is a problem for Kentucky. And we've started to see that in some of these games, but their lack of being able to wrap up on a tackle or just make tackles has allowed for some really explosive plays from their opponents. And it's kind of a problem, especially when you don't have an offensive identity. You've got to rely on that defense. And when they're not wrapping up on tackles, you just can't rely on anybody.
Yeah. Matt, I asked you this on Saturday night. Do you think the issue on offense is Brock Vandegrift or is it the supporting cast? Does he just not have the pieces around him to make it happen?
See, that's the thing is I don't know if it's necessarily the supporting cast either because, I mean, Vandegrift obviously struggled 9 for 17 for 120 yards, but when Gavin Wimsatt comes in, he goes 3 for 10 for 34. So it's not like he's astronomically better as far as that goes. It's just one of those things where it's a scheme issue. Maybe it's just an execution issue. Again, like you said, Wes, they're Jekyll and Hyde. Like we're not sure what we're getting week to week. I mean, is Kentucky broken? That's the real question. I mean, what has happened? Because I mean, a couple weeks ago they played Georgia and they looked like they could. Oh, okay, we can go toe.
Look what they did to Ole Miss.
And then look what they did to Ole Miss. And again, I don't know how you give up 500 yards of total offense to an anemic Auburn team that has been barely able to get first downs all season. It's just maybe Auburn got it all lined up on the right day. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the bus ride over, there was an exhaust thing open that made everybody, I don't know. It makes no sense. But I know if I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm really worried. Especially when you look at who they've got left. Kentucky still has to play Texas. Kentucky still has to play Louisville. They got to play Tennessee this weekend in Neyland at night. It's a blackout game, so God help you there. There's a lot of things that are. I mean, you're looking at maybe a potential 8-loss Kentucky team this year. That's you want to talk about regression. That's the word every time we talk about anything on this podcast. I feel like regression is a thing. And we have regressed a lot in Lexington. We're a long way away from that magical 2021-2022 season, whenever it was they won 9 or 10 games. We're a long way from there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go ahead and get to what we had dubbed the game of the week last week, and that was LSU at Texas A&M. A&M winning this one 38-23. Jesse got the point here. The first half looked like LSU had them in the stranglehold, and it might be a really disappointing night for Aggie fans. But then bold call by Mike Elko benching Connor Wigman for Marcel Reed in the third, and
Great decision.
the
Great
offense
decision.
was immediately transformed. On the other side, Nussmeier had 405 yards in the air. Looks good, right? 2 touchdowns, but his 3 picks were not just like deflection picks. They were real bad. They were really bad interceptions, ill-advised. So Matt, as you said, when we were watching this one, we may have seen a star being born in Marcel Reed in this game. Obviously, we've seen him do good things earlier in the season, but this is obviously, the eyes of the college football landscape were all on this game, and he really, came through. Not super impressive in the passing stats in this game, but 3 touchdowns on the ground, and he is an absolute problem for defenses to have to account for. So, Matt, let's start with you first. What were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, LSU just couldn't stop the run. Amari Daniels gets almost 100 yards, 91 yards, 7.6 yards averaging in the game. Le'Veon Moss came in, 83 yards on the ground as well. Marcel Reed, 63. Anytime you've got 2 or 3 guys that are over 50 yards in a game, that means your defense is doing nothing to stop the run. And that's exactly what happened in this one. I don't know what happened with LSU. It doesn't make any sense. Nussmeier looked very frazzled most of the night. He looked very busy. And again, 11 sacks. 11 sacks is a lot. Again, it's just a situation where you're like, I don't know what's going on here. If I'm an LSU fan, I'm really disappointed because I feel like this was an opportunity to put your name out there as a potential favorite in the playoff in a couple of months. But I feel like they kind of took a step back here, and they're gonna have to climb a little bit to get back in there. And now Texas A&M, which if you watch this week's SEC shorts, now if you're at Texas A&M, you're at the top of the mountain. You got the bullseye on you now. So how are the Aggies going to respond to it? That's the real question.
Exactly. And with this loss for LSU, you know what this means, Jesse? This means a potential elimination game between LSU and Bama coming up very, very soon. Well, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this one was so much fun to watch. As not a fan of either team, it was kind of like watching 2 different games in each half. You watch the first half and it's very much all LSU, and then A&M did what so many of the programs that we've talked about tonight, but that we talk about in general, don't do. They made adjustments at halftime, and they made the right ones. You talked a little bit about Marcel Reed coming in. I mean, it certainly seemed like they needed his mobility coming out of the backfield, and he certainly did that. But he also had some success with the passing game as well. So I'm going to be really interested to see who Coach Elko starts under center next week. But I think it's a bold move to switch out your quarterback, but it was clearly the right move. We often see coaches that say, they don't want to switch the quarterback mid-game. They don't want to hurt their confidence, but that seemed to be a great decision for them and what they truly needed. Also, we talked about Nussmeier and some of his lack of success and his looking a little jarred. He talked in press conferences going into that week that Kyle Field was loud, but it was no Death Valley. And I think that was wrong, because the 12th man came for him.
Mm-hmm.
They came for them. And it seemed to be a factor in this game, that energy, that 114 decibel stadium that they showed on TV. It was insane. It was a very difficult place to play. And that certainly, I think, played a part in some of those interceptions. And then also we talked a little bit, like we said, about offensive adjustments, but the defensive adjustments came up big after half. We saw them struggle a little bit even the week before against Mississippi State, not, shutting down the offense, but their defense came out after half and they showed that they could make those adjustments, and they did. And I think this A&M team, like Coach Elko said, they're for real.
Yeah, no, I agree.
By the way, guys, did you happen to see and I think I sent it in the group chat, the post game segment from Coach Elko after that game was over?
Kind of what she was just saying about how this is not a fluke, they're for
Oh
real.
yeah, I'm sorry. I must have zoned out while I was looking for the quote. Yes,
No, you're good.
again. Yeah, I was really impressed with that. I feel like I
Mhm.
really feel like that's exactly the kind of response you want from your coach. You want to
Yeah.
have him. There goes Jesse. She's running to the 40, the 30, the 20.
Yeah.
She. So I mean, that's what you want. And if you're an A&M fan, and again, if you take out that Notre Dame loss, which by the way, Notre Dame creeping back in the top 10 is definitely a choice when they lost to NIU. But if you take away that Notre Dame loss, I mean, this is an undefeated Aggies team. When we thought that they were going to finish like lower tier of the SEC this year, and here they are at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this team, all they have to do is, instead of being okay in the first half and then coming out in the second half and really being able to put the game away, if they're able to put together 2 complete halves, they're dangerous. I mean, they're
Yeah.
dangerous right now, but if they're able to put together that secret sauce in the first half plus the second half, that's a pretty dangerous Aggie football team. And remember, this is the same team that Jimbo Fisher decimated
Yeah.
last season. And I mean,
Supposedly an offensive guy. Couldn't get
yeah,
the offense going. And now you
what
got
an
Mike Elko,
incredible
a
turnaround.
defensive guy, getting things going.
Seriously, it's an incredible turnaround, and it's wild to see. Again, we'll talk about it when we get to the interview, but we're starting to see how this new landscape of college football is making it so any season things could just change for a program. It's wild.
Yep. Since you brought it up, Jesse, I want to park here just real fast because Matt and I talked about this on Saturday night about how wasn't NIL and the transfer portal supposed to ruin college football?
It
And
did. It's ruined. It's
here we
awful.
are.
You hate it.
Here we
Well,
are. This might be the most exciting season to date. I don't
And
know.
the 12
I wouldn't go that
playoff.
far, West. That 16th season was pretty special. We can't.
Well, you know what I mean in terms of overall every week, not knowing what team's going to do what. Even
Yeah.
the quote unquote terrible teams might have a shot. So
Yeah, it's nuts. And we heard that the 12-team playoff was just going to be it wasn't going to matter. The top teams were always going to be the top teams.
Oh my God.
No, this is truly a crazy, crazy place to be right now.
And looking it up on Sunday, I was looking up the playoff schedule. I'm ready for a month starting from before Christmas to was it January 20th of college
great.
football
God,
playoffs.
it's gonna be so good.
It's gonna be
as
amazing.
long hold on.
Yeah.
It will be fantastic as long as we don't have games on New Year's Eve.
Ooh, I didn't look. I think I did
Looking
see
at you,
some on the
ABC.
31st. I did see
I'm
some on the
looking at you,
31st.
ABC. There had better not be anything December 31st. I'm just saying, don't play stuff on New Year's Eve. Don't do it. People got parties to go to.
That's
Do
right.
it on New Year's Day. And the national championship needs to be on a Saturday. I will stand
God,
by that. I will stand by that.
But we also, if you remember, kind of first couple weeks, we assumed that we probably wouldn't have a 2-loss team
Right.
in the playoff because we assumed that there would be so many that were either undefeated or had 1 loss.
Yeah.
Boy, were we wrong.
Yeah. Especially as the losses continue to mount for so many.
Holy cannoli.
Yeah.
And look at it this way too, guys. If you got 2 losses, it's not the end of the world. You're not dead in the water. You just got to find a way to sneak in.
Matt, you were talking about games on New Year's Eve. I remember the Georgia-Ohio State game was New Year's Eve. And I just remember as they were lining up to take that final kick, as they were lining up for it, I could hear fireworks going off in the neighborhood around me. And it was just a surreal atmosphere, just all of that happening at once. So, yeah, it's wild. All right, so let's see. Let's talk about the last 2 that are blowouts. Arkansas, Mississippi State. Arkansas winning this one handily, 58-25. Jesse's the only one to pick Arkansas here. And then Missouri at Alabama. Bama just destroying them 34-0. I got the point here. I'm not going to speed on from this because, Jesse, I feel like you may want to say something about that one.
I think this one was obviously it was a mood booster. I was nervous. We have not lost 2 back-to-back games since 2007, so it was a precedent that we did not want to set. But it was nice. I think Jalen Milroe rebounded nicely after one of his worst games ever. And then we were finally able to get the run game going, which was nice for us. It's something we've been struggling with thus far this season. And our defense stepped it up and kind of kept Missouri's offense off the field for the most part. So that was also nice to see. There were certainly some issues. I'm a Bama fan, so I'm always going to find something to pick at. We were shining on both sides of the ball, but we did have a lot of penalties. So it's something I want us to continue to clean up. Our penalties certainly hurt us when it came to our poor punter. So let's do better, young men. But other than that, I won't belabor the point too much. It was a good comeback for us to get our confidence back up there, but certainly some discipline that still needs to get right.
Matt, is there anything you want to say about either of those games before we move on?
Yes, I would. I'd like to take a moment to personally thank the University of Alabama. And it hurts me to say that this is a Tennessee fan. I would like to thank the University of Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, all the offensive players, the defensive players for exposing the frauds that Missouri are and shutting them out because they deserve it. Oh, that being said, good wins for Arkansas, good wins for Alabama. I do kind of wonder what in the hell happened to Luther Burden in this game. 3 catches for 3 yards. What? I get that Bama's defense can be stout when it wants to be, but that's, man. And I know that Brady Cook ended up getting knocked out of this game, but whoo, when you have a segment on game day and then you get 3 catches and 3 yards, that same day, that's rough. That's really rough. And I say that with all respect to Luther Burden because his story is really cool and it was a really cool segment on game day, but God, that's bad. That's bad. You know what else is bad? The pick'em standings. Those are also bad.
Yes.
Really bad.
So since you brought it up, the pick'em standings right now, Jesse has 31, I've got 30, and Matt has 16. So
that's what's been wrong the past few years with me. Clearly, I'm an agent of chaos and I'm thriving here. But with normal standards, I cannot find success.
That's true. All these changes. Well, it's not like you weren't in the mix before, but you're just like, taking it to us this year. So
I am the Mississippi State of the pick'em standings right now. I'm at the very bottom of the hill looking up going, hey, you guys having a good time? It's rough down here.
Let's make it to helmet stickers. Matt, who's your helmet sticker recipients this week?
All right, so gotta love a helmet sticker. We have helmet stickers. You should get them.
We do.
Buy our merch. That being said, Suntrin Perkins from Ole Miss. I probably butchered that first name. I apologize if I did. 11 tackles in their game against Oklahoma. 4 sacks. That's a good day for the linebacker from Ole Miss. And then my second helmet sticker is going to go to Taylon Green. 22 for 39 for 314 yards, averaged about 10 yards a throw, 5 touchdowns on the day with an interception, but that's okay because when you score 6 touchdowns, you could throw a pick. No one's going to say boo. 8 carries for 79 yards. He averaged a first down every time he touched the ball. And if you're doing that, then you're doing some good stuff. And I will kind of brag on Taylor for a second. He had one of the prettiest moves I've ever seen out of a scrambling quarterback. It was on his touchdown run. If you haven't seen it, you should go look at it. He pushes off to the right. He starts to see that cornerback come up. He takes a step inside, gets the guy to bite, takes a step outside, gets the second guy behind him to bite, and then twists them both up, puts them both in the spin cycle, and ends up getting into the end zone. It was a beautiful play.
It was nice. Jesse, who are yours?
Yeah, I talked about it just a little bit when we talked about each of the games, but for me, Jalen Milroe, he was coming off what,
Homer!
I'm super Homer. I'm a Bammer at my core. But he was coming off what everybody said was his worst performance against Tennessee and, just his worst performance ever. And I think he he bounced back. He was able to kind of take it in stride and not let that get to him. And we saw a really strong performance from him, not only in the actual game, but I think the week leading up to it in press conferences, he took responsibility for the loss. He was able to speak very candidly about what needed to happen. And so I thought from a leadership perspective, I was really impressed with him, but also just completing 16 for 26 passes for 215 yards, carried the ball 11 times for 50 yards and a touchdown. So for me, he definitely gets one. And then I talked about it already, but Marcel Reed coming in after half, knowing that this is a really big game for both teams and coming in, putting that on his back and was able to be successful on the ground and in the air. I think if you're the quarterback that has to take over at half and you have to kind of make a comeback for your team and you have expectations resting on you, and if you're not successful, your coach is going to be ridiculed, saying that that was the worst move that they could have made, the worst decision. Knowing that you have those expectations on your shoulders and being able to shoulder them and succeed is a really big deal. So for me, Marcel Reed gets my second one.
Like those. Yeah, so mine are Jarquez Hunter with his career day for Auburn, obviously huge performance there. And then I also had Marcel Reed selected for mine, his game-changing performance, as we've discussed already in the LSU game.
I do want to point out I was also going to pick Marcel Reed, but I saw that you two had already written him down, so he had a heck of a weekend.
Could have been the trifecta for him. So, all right, that's right.
We will send them to you if you want them.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, let's go ahead. So we had an absolute blast talking with Porter Hayes of the Hog Talk podcast for Arkansas sports. And so let's go ahead and get into that interview. Well, today we are honored to be joined by Porter Hayes, host of the Hog Talk podcast, a podcast about all things related to Arkansas sports. He is a member of the Football Writers Association of America and the U.S. Basketball Writers Association. Porter, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on.
Yeah, so I understand that you were born and raised in Arkansas. Obviously, you cover Razorback sports, and so let's kind of get started here with a few of the basics about Arkansas football, starting with traditions. So, what are some Arkansas traditions that we should be aware of? Obviously, it's even in the name, pageantry, pigskins and pageantry.
Yes.
We're all about it. So, what do they got there at Arkansas?
Well, I mean, you go we have the pig trail. There's actually a road in Arkansas that leads. It's actually, I have a cabin on the road that leads up to Fayetteville. It's called the Pig Trail. It's a national scenic byway. Of course, the hog call. I mean, everybody knows Woo Pig Suey. But just, running through the A, calling the hogs. I mean, that we actually have a live hog mascot, Tusk, that is at the games. So
Love it.
It's everything around Arkansas. The cool thing about the state is we're it. We don't have a pro team. We don't have really a neighboring D1 school. So when you look at, I looked at the questions of this rivalry, it's like we've been searching for a rival ever since we entered the SEC, because we didn't have that, because we have Arkansas State, which is in Jonesboro, and then University of Central Arkansas, which is in Conway, but much smaller schools and just never really taken hold. But yeah, it's really cool. The interstate leading up from where I live to Fayetteville, it's just during the fall, seeing all the hog flags fly, on the helmets and stuff like that. It's an underrated environment for those who have never been in and around Fayetteville on game day. The 2021 Texas game, it took me about what would normally take 5-10 minutes. It took me 45 minutes to get around the stadiums because there was so many people there. SEC Network was there, and it was just an amazing atmosphere.
Right. Well, that's awesome.
By the way, if I can interject for a minute, this is the first time I've heard of this Tusk character, and I demand that the SEC Network start showing him ASAP.
Okay, and I believe
I've never seen him.
Yeah, he's in a little trailer with the
Love
cake.
that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I have seen him, but he needs more coverage for sure. Yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah,
Peter
we
hates
always
it, but I love that idea. It's
He
fantastic.
was shown a lot after that Tennessee win. I don't know if you caught that after the game, but
Yeah.
it was, that
No,
was
no,
more.
we turned that game off pretty quick when that happened. Okay, we've
Yeah,
seen all we
game was
need to
over.
today. Yeah,
TV
yeah.
off.
Really.
Well, this one's usually pretty popular with the listeners and viewers, but what are the key go-to spots on game day?
Well, we have a place right off. It's Dixon Street. That's where all the college kids go to. But I mean, barbecue, Wright's Barbecue. I mean, you're going to hear that. Herman's Rib House. It's where Cal, Coach Cal, when he would come in from Kentucky before he become Arkansas's head coach, that's a famous steakhouse in Fayetteville. Catfish Hole is another one. They actually do the coaches show from that spot. So I'll tell you, Northwest Arkansas, where Fayetteville is, it's a very diverse area. You have Walmart, Tyson, JB Hunt. So you can go to Bentonville, Springdale, Fayetteville, which is considered Northwest Arkansas, and you get a different vibe from each town. So you can go anywhere, have any type of food. But if you're talking about in Fayetteville, the go-to spots, I mean, again, you can rattle off Hugo's, which is a burger joint, but Dixon Street's the main spot. But if I was to give you 3 spots, you're in town for a weekend, I'd say Catfish Hole, Herman's, and then Wright's Barbecue.
Gotcha. I've not been, but I can only imagine what the barbecue in Arkansas is like.
It's amazing. We don't have the mustard based barbecue like out east, but I'm very partial to that mustard based Carolina sauce. But
Right.
it's top notch out here.
Right. So
It's hard to beat a good pulled pork sandwich regardless.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's hard to mess up.
So we talked about the Hog Talk podcast. How did that come about? Tell us about that.
I actually joined that in 2019. We just a couple of guys that were co-hosting it. We were doing it. When I started, it was Zoom and an iPhone. We didn't have. I mean, it was all audio. And just guys talking sports. We'd have former players on and coaches and stuff like that. But I was a huge women's sports fan. So they're looking, me being a Clemson fan, living in Arkansas, they wanted an outsider's perspective, but somebody who also was into the women's side of the sports. My first love for college basketball is UConn women's basketball. You could see the team photo behind me. I'm a sports fan. If you see the behind me, I've got a wide variety of. I had somebody on who's like, "What kind of fan are you?" And I'm a sports fan because you see an Arkansas side and then there's my side, But I started with the guys in 2019, and then through some staff changes and stuff, and COVID really ramped it up. We started doing live shows a couple of years ago when I ended up buying the podcast, and now we're here. We're part of the Believe Network. We went from when I joined, it was 8,000 followers. Now we're up to 53,000 followers, and do 2 shows a week. I mean, it's a lot of grind. It's a lot of. I respect everybody who does what we do because so many people in August think they can just jump on a mic and talk football. By January, you don't see their podcast, or even sometimes, depending on how their team's season go, by September, you don't even hear about them. So doing it year round consistently, I respect. I don't care. When I was at the point where we were searching for guests and begging people to let us come talk. So anybody that reaches out to us, I love coming on and talking ball with a lot of fellow co-hosts and podcasters because it's not easy what we do.
Right. And you sort of just touched on it, and obviously you cover Arkansas now, and you said you can objectively do that. But as you said, you're a Clemson fan, which this is not a ACC podcast. But tell everybody, how did you become a Clemson fan?
My dad was born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina, easily to be exact, but it's a little town off of Greenville. And in South Carolina, you're either a South Carolina fan or a Clemson fan. Well, my dad and my favorite aunt, she was a Clemson fan. You're 20 minutes from the stadium, so every summer when I would go out there, we would go to the campus and just everything about it. And also being born and raised in Arkansas, everybody was a Razorback fan. I always wanted to be different. I was always that fan that wanted to be kind of different. And, first 30 years of my life, it was really hell to be a Clemson fan, but I was always safe because we never played Arkansas. So I could be the Homer Simpson in the bushes because we never played each other. I could come out and make fun of Arkansas when, they lost or whatever. And then we could never beat Georgia Tech. And then Georgia, we've never been able to really do anything with Georgia. But, from 2012 until even what we're seeing now, we're seeing a great run out of Clemson. It's been a lot of fun. That 2016 game will be one of my favorite memories of my life because that was the first
Not
one.
mine.
But hey, it's the fact that I'm 42 and I never thought that I would see Clemson win a national championship. I even remember I looked at a tweet that come up back in 2013. I was like, the NCAA football game will be the only time I ever see Clemson win a national championship. When that happened, it was just an amazing feeling. Next day, my kids didn't even know. They woke up and I got a picture from them with the bottles and the clips and stuff. So it's just a memory that will never go away for any fan,
Right.
but that I've always been true to being a Clemson fan. But the more I got into the Razorback podcast, I really kept that away from it because there's only so much you can say about that before it gets annoying. And I never wanted to bring that into it. Never wanted to. I do some ties, especially, Chad Morris years really screwed me there. I could really never bring up Clemson and Arkansas again after he screwed the pooch on that. But no, it's been fun because you can make it a hobby, but yet still be a fan at the same time. And that's
Right.
why I chose to do Arkansas. I had a opportunity to cover Clemson sports, and I didn't want that to be a job. I love being a fan, love talking about it. So that's why I love what I do. I can cover and talk about a team that I have no really affiliation to, but I live in the state and keep my fandom off to the side.
I
Right.
have always said that because I worked for Alabama athletics and covered them. And while it was a dream to do that, to get to be on the sideline and, and go in Bryant Denny and go in our other facilities, it gets to become work. Like you said, you lose your fandom because no matter if you're working or not, you can't take your mind out of work.
Yep.
I could be at the game and I could not be covering it, but I'd look at the Jumbotron and I would say, they messed up that graphic, or, oh, I wonder if they're going to ask this at half. And so it
The
becomes
magic is lost a little bit.
It is.
Oh,
It
yeah,
becomes very
absolutely.
difficult to separate, and you lose your love for it in a sense. And so it took a little bit after covering it to where I was super excited again. And I don't know that I'll ever want to work for a team that I'm so passionate about because I want to have that separation, keep that love, keep that passion, and be able to walk away from, the quote unquote office.
I also think
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Porter.
I got into that one, being a passion about the women's sports, and you get connected because there's not that many people who cover it. You get connected with the coaches and you get connected and you want to root for them. And you're that guy with the pitchfork holding everybody back, trying to vouch for these teams.
Yep.
But that connection where I've had it happen recently, that connection where you feel like there needs to be any kind of change or things aren't going that way and you can't defend that said sport anymore. That was the toughest. That's the first time that it almost broke me because you have those deep connections. You were there when nobody else was, and you can't defend that anymore. That was the hardest show I've ever done because they're a close friend of mine. So
Right.
yes, trying to be a friend and a fan, but yet you're trying to do a professional job. That sucked.
That
It's
sounds
so hard.
exactly like what Brady was talking about for Oklahoma, how he's ranting about the defensive coordinator, and then you have to interview him, right after that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I think I love those journalists that, have played for a university and yet they can still cover a game or cover college football or college sports in general in a way that isn't coming off bias. I think we're all inherently biased in a way, but then, you see someone like, I have friends that don't realize that Reese Davis is an alumni of Alabama. And so when I talk about that, they're like, oh, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
I think he does a really
I
great
had no idea. That's news to
an
me.
alum. And so it's one of those where you're like, I wouldn't know. I don't know that I could be that person. It's very hard.
Yeah.
And that's why we have this, because it's the content we make and it can be as biased as we
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and you also get into sometimes you feel like you have to be a sunshine pumper because a lot of your audience that's what they want to hear. It's either very good or very bad. If you try to go anywhere in the middle, it's a lose-lose situation sometimes of when you're talking about and covering your sports, because again, if things are going, if you see any kind of glimmer, but we're talking about a 4-8 Arkansas team, you're seen as a sunshine pumper. But if, say, they do beat up like Mississippi State team 1-6, and you're trying to be excited about it, we'll see that was just Mississippi State, so it's hard when you try to engage with your audience and the content and stuff, and be right there in the middle at the same time.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just in your coverage of Arkansas sports and Arkansas football, who's your favorite Arkansas player, past or present, from Arkansas?
Man, that's tough. Oh man, I will
And it
have
could
to
be a
go
couple if you
my
can't
day.
decide on one.
Corliss Williamson back in the day. I mean, just what, bringing the national championship, and back then, President Clinton was in office at the time, and just there wasn't social media, and you were able to just go around and just, I don't know, just fly high. Like, I remember the summer I went to South Carolina, and I wanted to be a Razorback fan then. It's like, because I'm from Arkansas, I was proud of the state, and I had the Corliss Williamson jersey when I was out in South Carolina and stuff like that. But I would have to say he's one of the favorites. But I mean, that's tough, because then you got DMAC and Matt Jones. It's just, I'll throw a curveball and go Matt Jones, just because of what he was able to do with the football. A guy 6'6", 6'7", who run a 4.3 40, and you didn't realize how fast he was until he was past you. I had the privilege of playing against him in high school in football and basketball, and just watching him. He was a freak athlete. Like, he was just as good at basketball as he was football. That's what a lot of people don't realize. But he was so humble and didn't want the recognition. He does a local radio host on the ESPN Arkansas now. He's done it for years, but he just stays back in the bushes, and he don't really like to talk about like him. But when he's one of the most talked about, other than DMAC, when it comes to Arkansas football, but he was just a joy to watch, because he was a fan favorite, and just a guy that wasn't really a pocket passer. He was like Tebow before Tebow, because he could run, he could efficiently throw the ball, but the miracle on Markham against LSU, and just how he would put the team on his back, it was really cool.
Right. Well, Porter, you sort of touched on it earlier, and I don't know if you can decide on one, but who would you consider to be Arkansas's biggest rival? And give us your unfiltered thoughts on them.
If you would have to go overall rival, and if you held me, you got to go with Texas, just
Okay.
because of the history, the Southwest Conference. Now, most hated team, that's Missouri. Arkansas hates Missouri. It
Matt is
love
thrilled
that.
right now.
I love it.
And I'll say this: if it was not a forced rivalry, if they didn't try to make up this borderline trophy, try to make it a rivalry, I think it would have had more of that rivalry feel. But I'm old school. A rivalry to me is if you want to beat somebody just as much as you want to beat them. Missouri hates Arkansas just as much as Arkansas hates Missouri. So overall, yes, you can say Texas, but when you go to that Missouri team, that to me is a true rivalry now. And
Gotcha.
I know Arkansas hasn't done so well against Missouri, but Eli wants to beat Arkansas just as much as Sam wants to beat Eli. That's just how it is right now. But it goes into basketball and recruiting and every aspect. So,
right.
Yeah, the unpopular, if you would say, is Missouri. But if you ask a majority of the fan base, it's Texas. But they just have a lot of respect. You just want to beat them, but you can't say nothing about the fans or blah, blah, blah. Missouri, you can. You want to beat them, and the fans suck. That's just the way it is, So
I hear you.
What are your thoughts then on Eli Drinkwitz? I'm just curious.
Is this edited? What? Is this going on?
You can say what you want. I can mark it E if I need to.
Look, I can't say much because, well, I will, but I can't because the fact that they just beat Arkansas up and down and blah, 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 and the cigars. But which you have the right to. I just think he's the biggest douchebag when it comes to his arrogance and the cigars and all this, but then you get blown out. You think you're this team, but then you get blown out by A&M. Then you get blown out by Bama. And then this is the kicker. This is what makes him the biggest douchebag of all time. Last week, Brady Cook goes to the hospital. He treats him like he's Willis Reed, comes back and saves the day. And then 34-0. Now you're talking about you wish you had Alabama's quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I saw
and
that.
for me, I was saying it this
horrible.
weekend as we were watching Brady Cook, who obviously went out more for his hand than anything. To me, that is so irresponsible to have a player go to the hospital and then come back in a game and then start after not having practice. To me,
Right, all week. Yeah.
be the adult and don't set a precedent of, yep, just put your body on the line. It's okay. No, take care of yourself. And
But what about
instill
Toughness
that
Tuesday
value.
and circling the wagons and all that stuff?
Well, to me, that's just flim flam, right? Because
It is.
if you were circling the wagons, you would protect the child that's
Right.
there. And you would set an example and say, like, I value you and your ability to continue to play this game.
Right.
I'm not going to let you do that.
Yeah.
You're worth more to me than this is.
Well, we know that's all a bunch of BS, though. I mean, look, getting paid millions. They don't, and they're more salty now that the player's getting paid. So, here's the thing. I mean, that you're making money in now. So if you want to go out and ride that horse that he went, and you can't sit there next week turn on him just because you got beat 34-0. That's where I had, the film where he was talking to the Alabama player, or whoever he was talking about. If I had a quarterback like that, this would be different. You can't do that. That's where I have a problem with it.
He's throwing him under the bus, kind of like a Hugh Freeze did earlier with both of his quarterbacks earlier this year.
I gotta tell you, I'm
the quarterback. There were so many things that Missouri didn't do right. It didn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to state unequivocally for the record that if this is turning into an Eli Drinkwitz dump party, I'm all for it. In fact, I welcome it. I can't. Him and Shane Beamer are public enemy number 1 and number 2 in my book. So I'm
Beamer's
there.
little brother to me. I can't. He's got to beat us before he can sit there and talk about us. So that's one of them things. It's
Porter. I'm going to Twitter right now and dropping you a follow. Let's continue. Everything you're saying, I'm picking up. So I'm there.
The only thing Shane Beamer ever won at South Carolina was a jar of mayonnaise. It's just that's all he's ever won.
It's pretty gross.
I love it.
Gross.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that both of those teams, Porter, because a couple of weeks ago we had an LSU fan on the podcast, and I asked him the same question, and I said, "What about the boot with Arkansas?" He's like, "It's not a big deal." And so you're saying the same thing. It's mutual.
No, I won't say that. I mean, it's one of those rivalries. I'm a realist. I mean, Arkansas sees that rivalry just like we'd see the Texas rivalry, but it's not reciprocated.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you're going on just the Arkansas fan point, yes, I mean, you could throw LSU in there. But look, if you would ask me this when they still played that game after Thanksgiving, LSU's up there because that game was magical. That game was in War Memorial. Now we lost that, and we're losing games in War Memorial, but a lot of that has to do with your playing in Jerry World. So you got to think Arkansas didn't play a home game until week 5 because War Memorial away, Dallas away, so no, the LSU game back in the day when Arkansas was winning you could sit there and say as an LSU fan, it wasn't a rivalry, but it was. Yeah. It lost a lot of the luster when they gave it to A&M and LSU and made Arkansas play Missouri after Thanksgiving. So that's where in the beginning, it wasn't Missouri, but now it is. But yeah, I totally respect anybody on the LSU side because they're more the historical. It'd be like saying Arkansas wants to beat Georgia or Tennessee or Alabama all the time. And then we're wondering, why don't y'all want to beat us? Well, we're not on the level of those teams. So we have to respect if the other side of it doesn't see us as that true rival.
Y'all used to be on the level though. I remember playing Arkansas in the those early 2000s up until probably like 2011.
After DMAC,
oh my God. It was,
and then Bobby Petrino. Yeah.
It was nuts. I mean, it was like, I remember being terrified of Ryan Mallett. Just, rest in peace. But it was, It was nuts.
Oh, when they threw that wheel route again, and, you know, Wingo, and that was the loudest you've ever heard that stadium. I mean, it was just, but again, you know, they were dangerous. It's just,
Oh, yeah.
you had Houston Nutt when, you know, had DMAC, and, you know, 98, they almost had it. If it wasn't, I mean, that was the best, you know, Tennessee moment ever, you know,
Man,
gave them a national championship, you know, so you can thank us. We want half of that, you know, so.
hey,
But what do you
Yeah.
I'll share it with you right now. I got no animosity, no angst, anything against Arkansas.
Yeah.
I like the Hogs now, and I love Sam Pittman. I've
I
always
love
liked
Sam Pittman.
Yeah.
But what do you
He's
think?
definitely a friend of the show.
What do you think of bringing back Petrino? Obviously, he left interesting circumstances. And now that he's back, certainly as a coordinator, not a head coach. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'll tell you how big that was. And this is going to blow your mind. When they announced Bobby Petrino was coming back to Arkansas and they were going to announce him, Arkansas was playing Duke in Bud Walton Arena. They flew a plane over Bud Walton Arena that says, "Welcome back, Bobby." If that tells you how much
Wow.
that meant, but I'm gonna roll it back and explain why. Arkansas has a championship in 94 and 64. We live off nostalgia. I'm 42 years old, and you live off nostalgia. You wanted the Bobby Petrino ball to come back, whether it was going to happen or not. We're seeing it come back. We seen how they played against Mississippi State. They wanted to be good so bad, but when you go John L. Smith, Chad Morris, after the falling out of Brett Bielema and all that, you wanted something to hold on to because of what was happening wasn't working. So you had to take a gamble. You if you knew he would come back. But what worried me is how he went to go be with Barry Odom at UNLV and then immediately bolted for the A&M job. I knew that wasn't going to work because you got two alpha males trying to be on the same side of the ball.
Said that.
Yeah.
You know,
We
and
said that
Jimbo,
exact same thing.
biggest ego ever. You know, he's one of them. He got his $75 million because of Jameis Winston. You know, if I want to throw my little ACC stuff in there, you know,
Right.
that's how he got it. You know,
Yep.
And what has he done since the 2013 national championship?
That is the definition of
Hello, Jimbo
leveraging something for a
Fisher.
job opportunity.
You have an empty trophy that was on your trophy case that says national championship and it stayed blank, but you get 75 million. So when people say
My
players,
gosh, I forgot about the blank. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How can you
know,
forget about that? It's
That
amazing.
Still
So-
just blows my mind.
yeah, and you get to ride off in the sunset with 75 million guaranteed, and we still want to gripe and piss and moan about players getting paid, getting their little $100,000 or whatever, or lease on a car. Like,
Oh yeah.
let's look at how many coaches made millions. I'll throw Dabo in there. I mean, yeah, he's a good coach, but let's look at, you know, Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence and what that elite status got him because of those players, and then Brent Venables and Tony Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
Got to play a whole story. Now you're the richest, but Saban and Dabo were the biggest voice heads on against NIL. One's out. And I'm sorry, you're going to I thought it was so rich for him and his wife to sit there and complain about paying the players when you made $9 million a year off of these players. Like that was so wrong of anybody to say when you had a clause in your contract, you were going to be the highest paid college football coach, no matter what. Then in return, you can't handle it when the players got the power now and the money, you jump ship, which that's his right. I didn't agree with it. I lost a little bit of respect for him about the comments, not him leaving, but it was the comments him and his wife said afterwards where I lost some respect for him. He's still the greatest coach of all time, but it really rubbed me the wrong way of how they kind of was acting a little childish about it.
I've said that for years, not just Saban, but just coaches in general. I mean, they're happy to take their cut and make their money. And then it was the players that suffered the most. Because, you know, the coaches can, you know, take off in the middle of the night and go somewhere for a higher paycheck. And then what do the players do, right?
Exactly.
So,
it's a give or take on it. You know, that's a whole nother episode podcast we could talk about.
For sure.
Yeah, it's just, but you've seen college football. I put out the other day, and if I can ask one question, I asked my co-host last night, is this not the funnest that college football's ever been?
the wildest.
Matt and I were just talking about
I was
that
about to
the
say,
other day.
Wes, didn't we just have that conversation Saturday night
This
while
is
we were watching the
the
A&M game?
best.
Yes.
I
It's been
woke up.
phenomenal.
We had my stepson's birthday party yesterday, or on Saturday, and from 11 o'clock until the Colorado Cincinnati game, I was watching quality football all through the day.
Yeah.
And it happened. And you look at the end of the season for the SEC alone,
Yeah.
we are going to have a gauntlet
Mm-mm.
Teams
throughout.
that aren't supposed to be good, right?
So
It's like,
look at Indiana, you look at Vandy, Colorado, nobody gave Dion a chance, and now he's in a position to win his conference. You just see all these teams that have benefited from the portal. It has its bads, but when you look at, we ain't even got to the playoff yet,
right.
and we're still salivating over what's going to happen this weekend because we have quality games.
Yep.
We ain't even hit on Alabama, Auburn. We ain't even hit on Michigan, Ohio State. Notre Dame, we ain't even got to the bread and butter of the games of the season into the end of the year, and we have all this right in front of us.
Yeah. Can't wait. So Porter, you may have already answered this question for us, but who is the best, and this is always the most popular, who's the best fan base that you've interacted with? And then maybe the even more popular question, who's the worst fan base that you've dealt with?
The best fan base I've ever dealt with was Oklahoma. This was actually as a Clemson fan, but I live right on the border of Oklahoma. I'm like 30 minutes away. Well, my brother-in-law was playing in a bar New Year's Eve when OU and Clemson played in that semifinal game.
Mm-hmm.
We go down there. My brother-in-law was playing. He said, "Do not come down here," because the game just got over. But I go down there. I'm in all Clemson gear. I didn't buy a drink the whole night. They were so respectful. They threw their jabs and whatnot, but they respected a guy coming in. I mean, you think of where Clemson, South Carolina is. You're
Right.
sitting in a casino in McAlester, Oklahoma. You see a Clemson guy walk in. It's just one of them things that just happened. But no, I'd have to say, outside the BS, I mean, South Carolina fans aren't that bad either. I mean, I've ran into those, but the worst, I go back to what I said earlier, Missouri. There's just nothing pleasant about them. All they do is troll and talk, and yeah, they got us in football, but other than that,
To be fair, they do live in Missouri,
yeah,
so
that's true. Yeah, bless
a
them.
little bit more. And again, if you're a Missouri fan watching this, I'm sorry, but he has a point.
Bless their
Yeah.
heart. That's all we can say. They might
was-
not get that,
What was that deal where Mizzou was going to play in St. Louis, and it was called Mizzou to the Lou, and
Oh,
that just
my
threw
God.
you through a loop, Matt. You're like, that is the most Mizzou thing ever.
It screamed
to
Eli
have-
Drinkwitz is what it screamed it, and
Yeah.
it's like this is the worst marketing decision I've ever heard a football team make.
Well, and then every time they ask him a question, he's like, "MIZ." Like, dude, I don't know.
It's almost as bad as buying your team we're bowl eligible shirts the day after you get your 6th win, but we won't do that. We won't.
No,
Yeah.
I got to throw the worst one out there. I'm going to go pick on South Carolina again.
Okay.
Steve Spurrier bought South Carolina rings for winning 11 games.
To be fair, 11-win season in South Carolina is pretty damn good.
He didn't win nothing. He didn't win nothing. It was 11 win rings, and I have the screenshot because I use that anytime I want to when I want to troll South Carolina fans. So yeah,
Love that.
but no, I get the bowl eligibility, whatever, but it's the thing. But
That's
Arkansas,
the expectation. That's
Yeah.
not something you celebrate. That's
Well, when you're a top 10 team to start the season, you're kind of expecting to make a bowl, but
oh yeah,
but anyway, we've trashed Eli in Missouri enough. Let's move on, Wes.
Yeah, I hear you. So we talked about Sam Pittman a little bit earlier. I have to ask, what are your thoughts on the job that Sam Pittman has done as head coach? Honestly, as a Georgia fan, I have a soft spot in my heart for him. O-line coach. He was a great coach for us. But what do you think of the job he's done as head coach there at Arkansas?
it's been a mixed bag. I mean, he's had his times, but I had a guy really respect in the media that we really lean on each other. And he's like, if you really look at what he endured coming into a COVID year, a solid, let's play a full SEC schedule and nothing else. Then you COVID year, you're dealing with trying to find your coordinators. Odom and Browse left, and Browse was here. He had one foot out the door. He was trying to go Miami. Then he was trying to go to Mississippi State, and then he wound up at TCU. he was still dealing with Chad Moore style players. He was still dealing with that type of roster. And there's been times where, I want him to be a little bit more passionate, whether it's a win or a loss. He's just that same kind of monotone, easygoing guy. And there's just times I just want to just scream, like, show us some passion. Maybe if you showed a little bit more fire after a loss, you would get a little bit more respect on what we have to talk to you about you on a Sunday after a Saturday game. But to go out and get the staff, if he wasn't there, you wouldn't have T. Will. If he wasn't there, you wouldn't have Bobby Petrino. But we know, look at Ed Ogeron when he puts the perfect pieces together with the staff. Look at
Right.
Dabo Swinney when he puts together the perfect pieces with the staff. Took 7 years to build a dynasty at Clemson. It took Ed Ogeron a few years when he had Joe Burrow, but you had Aranda and Brady as your coordinators.
Yep.
You get the perfect staff, that perfect. I've said this a couple times on our show. You get that perfect triangle where the head coach and your OC and your DC, and you can mix and let them do their jobs. You can beat anybody. That you can play with anybody. So looking at from last year to this year, you got to give the man credit because you're sitting there now 5-3, 3-2, coming off of 4-8, and you gained. Jackson's a dog, but he's been battling injury all year. Taylor Green went through it. You had Singletary come in at the end in the Tennessee victory, so he's been able to get some guys buy in, but it's also those coordinators have been able to do their job. So I give them a B+ this year. Now, I want to hold that at a B right now because I want to see how the rest of the season plays out. But you have to give the man credit on what he's done because I had him at 7 wins, hopeful 7 wins heading into the season. But then they might get that and could squeeze out an 8th win. You never know.
Yeah, very true. So before I get to the last question or two, Jesse and Matt, did y'all have any others for Porter?
I mean, my question, I think, is we talked a little bit about transfers in the transfer portal, but obviously last season you had KJ Jefferson, you had Rocket Sanders, and then they both transferred out. What are your thoughts on that and how that has or has not affected this season's team?
It completely, you see, you're in a position now where you can get some players. Because it always went to the coach speak. You're only good as your next job. So now we have the transfer portal. Now you can gauge your players on you're only good as your next job. Granted, Rocket Sanders was hurt. He's had his deals. He showed flashes against South Carolina, but it's just not clicked.
Right.
KJ goes to UCF and a guy in Gus where if you're trying to be a good, you're not there with some chump OC/head coach. You've seen what happened, but I say that to say this. Arkansas was at a point where there was complacency. There was no competition for your job. You throw NIL in with no competition, you can just, I might show up today, I might not.
Yeah.
Or you could be, KJ did do his duty. He got beat up and thrown down, and he could have just been like, screw it. Nothing against KJ, but it still goes back to the complacency. Now you come into this year, you got a guy coming into Quentin Jackson, Taylor Green, who has tried to be out there as much as possible, but it gives you options. And they're making the most coming from Boise State and Utah. Now you put them in with a whole new system, whole new coordinators and people who believe in you just as much as you believe in them. I have to say, if anybody says we downgraded, I want to see their fan card. You can't say that, so I think we're a lot better off. But yeah, it's been really good. And that's why I said the high praises for the transfer portal, because look what it's done for Arkansas. It's turned a 4-8 team into 5-3, 3-2, and we're headed down this final 4-game stretch.
Yeah. Do y'all have any others?
I would just like to ask, kind of deviating back to the ACC Clemson thing. Dabo has come out on record as being very much against the idea of getting people in the portal and all that. So what's your take on that, Porter? I'm just kind of curious. You're sitting here praising the portal, but at the same time, the team that you're a fan of, their head coach isn't too keen on it.
Well, look at their status. Would you say Clemson is an elite program as what they once were? it's easy to hang your hat on 10 wins in the ACC, but look now, when you played Georgia the last 2 years, you haven't been competing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Beforehand, you were competing, even when you were losing, you were competing with Alabama. You were competing with Georgia, LSU, Auburn, Texas A&M. You look from that Peach Bowl against LSU, and moving forward, you're playing 2 SEC teams a year, and you're competing with them, and then going into the college football playoff every year from 15 until I want to say 2021 is the last year when they got beat by LSU. But it's the fact that you can't say I'm for it and then, well, make an exception because Dabo, you don't want to embrace it. That's fine. That's his right. But you're not going to be on that level. And I hate it because all the Clemson fans keep jumping on me about it when I say this. Go ahead and hang your hat on these wins against these lower level teams, because when you get to the college football playoff, when you go back to the big boy table, you're going to get beat 24-6 again. You're going to get beat 17-3 or whatever, because you don't have that talent and that depth that you're used to having an elite status. So
do you think he would ever change his stance, or you think he would go down with the ship?
no, because I mean, look, why? He makes $9 million a year, and he's the king of Clemson University. He still wins the ACC, another Clemson championship. But that's just how he is. His ego is. He's the band on the Titanic. He'll sit there and play it as it's sinking, and they're going to have to force him out.
Yeah.
It's an unpopular. I get roasted every single time about that. But everybody's like, well, look at the conference championship season one. Yeah, enjoy those wins over NC State and Florida State. That Florida State can't even beat Roast Beef State. But let's bank on those wins. But I'll tell you, they're going to get probably a 7, 6, 7 seed in this, or maybe a 5 because of how probably a 4. If they win the ACC, they'll get a top 4 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see how, when you're playing against a team like a Ohio State or a Georgia or you take the top 6 teams in the SEC right now would go win outside of maybe Ohio State. What team are they not beating? From what I've seen out of the SEC this year, you'd win the Big Ten. They're outside Ohio State. They're just abysmal.
Don't say that, Porter. You're gonna get them Ohio State fans in our mentions again.
But that's
they'll come flying in here.
Suckeye State. It's just it's. But you're a 20 million team. We're talking about the NIL portal. You're a $20 million team, and you struggle to beat freaking Patrick Mahomes' little brother. It's like you got to do better than that. You have to do better than that.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
That's fair. All right, big game coming up this weekend for Arkansas against Ole Miss. What is your prediction for that one?
Man, it's hard to give predictions because every time I give a prediction, it's wrong.
Same.
It's one of those things you treat the Ole Miss game like the LSU game because the last 4 games have been close. Sam Pittman has not done very well in close games. Granted, it's in Fayetteville, but it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. It's tough because it's funny coming off a win. I'm even more unsure about what this team's going to come out and do because Arkansas has had trouble to put 2 games together in a row this whole season. I really wish they would win. I hope they were going to win. If they do, I would say 10 to 14 points win, but it all depends on what team's going to show up. I mean, we've seen it's almost like they play better on the road. They do at home. And you can't give up. Well, I'll say this. You can't give up 471 yards of offense to Ole Miss and beat Ole Miss. You got lucky against Mississippi State. There was some calls. I'll tell you what, Arkansas fans have gotten the shaft by SEC officials, but I haven't said it. Mississippi State fans, we feel you. We know how you feel because there was a couple of calls that took away some touchdowns that could have, it was close. So you got to take this game. Lane's just not, struggle win against OU. I really, Jaquindon Jackson's probable. I can't say he's out. He's listed as probable, but I tell you what, Braylon Russell, huge performance against Mississippi State. This kid's a true freshman, but he's 6'4", 5'10", 5'11", 250. And I mean, a battering ram, 175 yards rushing. He can do it. It's just, can the defense slow down Ole Miss? That's going to be the key to the game.
Yeah. Well, Porter, we really appreciate you coming on the show. Real quick before you go, though, where can people find you on social media?
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, The Hog Talk. That's where the HAWG, we can't spell HOG due to copywriting reasons. So we are the HAWG Talk podcast. So,
Well, as a dog fan, DAWG, I love it. So,
Hey,
it is what it is. But yeah,
That's right.
it's a lot of fun.
I hear you.
I really appreciate y'all having me on again. It was a lot of fun to chop it up with y'all.
thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Porter.
I appreciate it. Thanks again. Well, that was a lot of fun. I really
That was so
enjoyed
much
talking with
fun.
him. Yeah.
He is hilarious.
Yeah, he had a lot of funny things to say, a lot of great points. So
I think that's the first guest we've ever had where I've immediately followed them on Twitter.
yeah,
Yeah, I got it.
especially
Let's
with
go.
the drinky comments, you guys just
It gives
Oh,
me
and-
absolutely connected over that.
I love someone that's just like, I'm a huge women's sports fan. Like I'm bought in from
Yeah.
the onset. You tell me that, I'm there with you. So I appreciate him.
I love it. All right, well, let's go ahead and do some predictions for the games that are coming up.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, so the first game that we have is number 19, Ole Miss, 6-2, 2-2 in the SEC at Arkansas, 5-3, 3-2 in the SEC. That's noon on ESPN, or as Porter mentioned, 11 a.m. local. So
That's way too early for a football game. I'm
that's
sorry.
brutally early.
I know TV schedule is what it is, but good God, you should
Yeah.
not be having brunch when you're going to a football game. That should not be a thing.
Yeah, so Arkansas feeling good after that blowout win last week. As Porter mentioned, though, stringing wins together has been difficult for the Hogs this year. Ole Miss, however, has been a little sus for many weeks now. I'm going to give Arkansas the edge at home here. Taylon Green had a career day last week, and Braylon Russell, as he mentioned, rushed for 175 yards, the most for an Arkansas running back since 2022. Ole Miss will be a tougher opponent, obviously, but I think that they'll keep rolling. I'm going Arkansas here, 31-28. Jesse?
Yeah, I think Ole Miss is, despite having won this past weekend, I think they're a little frustrated with the fact that they let Oklahoma kind of stick around longer than they should have. But I think they're going to try to clean that up. And despite this being at home in Arkansas, it's like Porter mentioned, they tend to play better on the road, actually. So I'm going to go with Ole Miss in this one. I think it's going to be close for the first half, and then I think Ole Miss will put it away. But I'm going to go 28-24 Ole Miss.
It's probably smart. I think Ole Miss is actually favored in this one. Matt, what do you got?
Actually, I looked at that stat earlier, and Ole Miss is favored. Waiting, computing. One moment. Ole Miss is favored by 7? Question mark? Yeah. So they're favored by 7. By the way, I would have loved for Arkansas to not play good at home when we played them. That would have been nice. But that didn't happen, did it? What might have been. Anyway, as far as this game goes, I kind of agree with Porter's thing. Arkansas has not been good at kind of linking wins together. That chaining issue could be an issue here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Ole Miss here. And I think they keep it close, but I think a late touchdown puts Ole Miss ahead 35-30.
Okay. All right. Next is Vanderbilt, 5-3, 2-2 in the SEC at Auburn, 3-5, 1-4 in the SEC. That's 12:45 on the SEC network. Look, Vandy almost kept up their wild run last week, but they still get no respect, right? Auburn is favored
They
by
dropped out of
6.
the top 25. Did y'all see that?
I did see that.
Did you
Auburn,
see who snuck into the top 25?
I did, but I forget. Who was it? Huh?
Colorado.
Colorado. That's right.
According to some, who are the worst fans ever.
That's right.
And Notre Dame's back in the top 10. So do with that information what you will.
Again, it doesn't matter. AP doesn't matter. It's not real. It's not a real poll. All right. Auburn is favored by 6.5 in this one. I'm having a hard time buying in, though. That too many issues for Auburn we've seen this year. inconsistent. And Vandy, I think, still has a little bit of that confidence despite the close loss last week. So obviously they've seen the great things that they are capable of this year. So I think that that helps them. I know it's on the road, but I think Vandy becomes bowl eligible here and completes the sweep of SEC teams in Alabama. I'm going Vandy here, 28-24. Sorry, Jesse. What do you got?
No, that's okay. Honestly, I'd rather them sweep the state because
Oh
if
my
somehow
God.
Auburn beats them and we didn't,
That's
like, I'm
true.
gonna be more upset.
That's true.
I agree though. I don't think Auburn has an identity on offense, well, on defense either, but on offense especially, I don't think that there's an identity there. I think Vandy has a very clear identity on offense, and I think that Auburn's going to struggle with them. I agree that Texas loss was actually a little bit of, like he said, a culture win. It did boost their confidence. They're able to hang around with the premier programs this season and really make them kind of shake in their boots a little bit. So I think Vandy is going to take this one. Like you said, they're going to get bowl eligible. I don't care that it's in Jordan-Hare. Hugh Freeze must have messed with the juju when he got there, but I'm going to pick the Commodores in this one, 24-21.
You didn't get the memo about the sweater vests,
I
so
didn't.
Maybe Gus dug it up on his way out of town.
maybe.
Yeah.
So despite their issues this year, Jordan-Hare is still a tough place to play. Matt, what do you think?
I believe in the Commodores. We've shortchanged them all season. We'll keep waiting for them to lose a game, and then they never do, or they play things a little closer than they've surprised a bunch of people. And like we said, Auburn has had their struggles. I think what it's going to come down to is if Diego Pavia can play a clean game, not throw any picks, and if the offense can stay on the field. I like Vandy here, and I think they're going to do that against Auburn. So I like Vanderbilt 35-27.
Vandy bleeds clock. Like,
That was their strategy against Bama, just control
They
the
run
time
a
of
lot.
possession.
That helps.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's move to let's see. That's kind of blurry. That's better. Question.
What was that?
Question. Which bear is best? The answer
Easy.
is
Black bear.
black bear. The main black bears, to be exact, who are 4-4 at Oklahoma, also 4-4, 2:30 on ESPN Plus. I know the records are the same, but let's be honest, these two teams are not similar. I'm going OU here, 42-10. Jesse, what do you got?
Yeah, as much as I would love to pick Maine because I hear it's just such a beautiful place with lovely food, I have to pick Oklahoma in this one. Again, they started to give Ole Miss some trouble, and then they just weren't able to actually close it out. So I think they're frustrated. I think they are very much itching to get bowl eligible, and they have a little ways to go, but this would be a step towards it. So I'm going to pick the Sooners here, 35-21.
Matt?
Wes, I want to go on record as saying that might be your best bid to date. That being said, I have a hard time imagining a team from way up north in Yankee land's going to be able to come down here and compete. And I say down here when I say Oklahoma's in the South.
It's all relative.
Whatever. It's not important. Geography doesn't matter anymore. The Big Ten showed us that. Yes, I went there. So I like Oklahoma in this game. I'm not sure if the score I've picked is going to be accurate. I don't know if OU is going to get to this point. It may be a little under, but I picked OU 38-14.
Okay. All right, next is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Florida, 4-3, 2-2 SEC versus number 2 Georgia, 6-1, 4-1 in the SEC, 3:30 on ABC. This is one where Florida almost always plays as tough no matter what. It's just, one of those typical games. Florida seems to have figured out some stuff against Kentucky last week, or, the last time that they played them, or when they played them. Hopefully Kirby and the defensive coaches have gotten the defense schemed up to stop DJ Lagway and what he brings to the table. I'm hoping. I think Georgia wins, but maybe not quite as big as the experts are thinking. I'm going to go Georgia 31-17 here. Jesse, what do you think?
I know Georgia has made a lot of improvements since this game, but we did see Georgia struggle against Kentucky. Obviously, the loss against us, a not the best Bama team, and we've just seen some people poke holes in what's happening there in Athens. And so knowing that Florida plays them very hard and that Florida has started to figure some things out, I think they're going to make this a ball game a little bit more so than, like you said, the experts think. I think they're going to really try to leave it all on the field. I think UGA will pull away in the second half, but I'm picking this one I'm picking the dogs, but a little bit closer than most may think, 31-24.
That's probably a fair pick. Matt, what do you got?
This game. It's always this game.
By the way, they
think
still have the
Florida's-
opportunity to do all black, all orange. Make it happen one of these times. I know it's not one of those
I don't
things.
understand why we don't do more color versus color games. Like Tennessee, Alabama should be orange versus whatever the hell color that red is. Yeah,
but this could
that's
be
what I mean.
Halloween. It's always
No,
like,
I completely
Yeah.
agree. I'm not arguing with you. I completely agree. Like, we should do more color on color matches,
it's so
but
good.
And I realize they can't just, magically make jerseys appear. That has to be planned
They
ahead of
can.
time. So
these
if they
programs
didn't
have
plan
millions of dollars on hand, Wes. They can do anything
Well,
they
you know
damn
what I
well
mean.
please.
Texas A&M had all black everything, and black is not their colors.
Right. So if they have
At
not
all.
planned it for this year, go ahead and put the order in for jerseys for next year. Let's make it happen. I'm just saying.
I'm here for it. Listen, I have a buddy of mine at work. He's a Florida fan, and I've been talking to him. And I would imagine that he probably doesn't feel very optimistic about this game. And to be honest with you, I don't feel optimistic either if I'm a Florida fan. I think UGA is going to roll in this one. Brock has looked kind of the last couple weeks. So I think, or sorry, not Brock, Carson Beck. Excuse me. I don't know why I called him Brock.
I think I knew what you meant.
He knew exactly what I meant. He's been kind of the last couple weeks, and I
Yeah.
think this is probably the game where he starts to get it back together. So I like UGA big here, 42-18.
Okay. I hope that you're more correct than us. So, all right, let's move to Massachusetts 2-6 at Mississippi State 1-7, 4:15 on the SEC network. Mississippi bounces back from the beatdown of last week. I think in this one, I'm going Mississippi State 35-21. Jesse, what do you got?
Yes, I want this for them so bad. If you want to go to a college football game and you're near the area, this is a very family affordable game to go
Right.
to.
Take the
So-
kids.
Take the kids, take grandma, take aunts and uncles.
How much are the tickets, Jesse?
They're less than a Wendy's biggie bag.
$3.
$3. Wow.
They're $3.
You want to talk about value?
Value. That's right.
Truly. So I'm going to pick the Bulldogs in this one, 28-21.
All right, Matt.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Massachusetts play and host Missouri earlier in the season?
They did. Actually,
Yeah,
Georgia
so
plays
that-
them in a few weeks. It's the weekend before Tech, the final game
They
of the
make
season.
so much money off the SEC.
I
Yeah.
mean, apparently they're making tons of money this year. I don't like Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
I don't like UMass's chance in this particular game. I think Mississippi State's going to get a little bit of a bounce back here and get to that second win of the season.
Yeah.
Oof. So Mississippi State 27-10.
You were very disparaging of the Minutemen mascot the last time we talked about them too. So
It's a silly mascot. It's stupid. I'm sorry. I know that that's going to offend some people. I said what I said. It's a stupid mascot.
just can't wait for all the UMass fans in the
All
comments.
7 of them are
Yeah,
going
that's
to
right.
are going to be all up in the comments.
That's it. All right, let's go ahead and talk about number 10, Texas A&M, 7-1, 5-0 in the SEC at South Carolina, 4-3, 2-3 in the SEC. 7:30. Don't look at me like that. 7:30 on ABC. Look, Texas A&M needs to be real careful going into this one. All right. Apparently, Vegas agrees because they're only favored by 2.5. And that may have changed. I mean, that may have changed, but as of this afternoon, when I was looking at it, it was 2.5. This could easily be one of those trap style games, and South Carolina would love to ruin A&M's, great season that they've got going here. I think Sellers and Sanders are going to have big games for South Carolina. This might be one of those weird games, Matt, where you're like, what's Beamer doing? Who's he talking to? Despite what I believe will be another big game for Marcel Reed, I'm going to go with yet another upset this week. I'm going South Carolina 24-21. Jesse, what do you got?
Jesse, you caught up with him in the pick'em, and now he's panicking.
I'm probably about to tank right now, big time. I'm just
You're giving me a chance to get caught up. I
Vandy-
appreciate that.
If Vandy had only won it for me, then I would
Yeah.
have just been like, I'm putting upsets everywhere. You make valid points. South Carolina has been known to come in and be a trap game. Trust me, I know they were almost there for me. Okay. But I think that Texas A&M is figuring some things out. I think they're going to be cautious when it comes to underestimating their opponents. I think they're going to start Marcel Reed, but as we've seen in this past game, A&M is not afraid to make adjustments. So if they decide at halftime that Marcel Reed or vice versa is not the guy, they'll throw in Connor Wegman. I think that's bold, and I think it's what actually is going to help them out here. Again, they also have been shown to make defensive adjustments in the second half. They just have to put it together in the first half. So I'm going to pick the Aggies here. I know it's very hard to play in Columbia, and it's a night game, but I think they're going to do well. They're used to Kyle Field, so it shouldn't harm them too much. I'm going Aggies 35-24.
All right, Matt, how annoying is Sandstorm going to be for A&M?
I want to go on record as saying I love Sandstorm. I've enjoyed it since the 90s. I don't care what anyone says.
It is great.
It's kind of a shame that it got co-opted by the University of South Carolina, but yeah, I digress. That being
They also
said,
have zombie something. They also claim that
the
zombie
Cranberries?
No, the
Zombie Nation.
Yeah.
The Kerncraft, whatever it is. Yeah, I know what
they
you're talking
like
about. Yeah.
had him in Columbia.
What is that?
Now, you're talking about Darude. He was in Columbia. And
Darude. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
yeah, he mixed he's the one who mixed Sandstorm. He was there.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
I mean, they're very easy to get confused. I mean, not that I'm, hating on either song, but
Yeah, no, for
similar
sure.
jams.
Yes.
This song.
Mhm.
Yeah, our closing credits.
Yep.
Every is that? Oh, it is, isn't it? I
Yeah.
never made that connection. Shows you how often I pay attention to things. That being said, Wes, I can't say what I wrote in the show notes.
Yeah, I got it.
No.
That's all.
I don't know what you're. I mean, I understand. It's like Jesse said. I understand your argument, but your argument is invalid. I think A&M's kind of got their feet under them. I think A&M's going to also kind of steamroll this game. I think Carolina's going to score late, which is going to make this look closer than it is. I like A&M here 42-20. I think this is a knockdown drag out from the minute it starts up.
All right, we'll see.
Don't do that. I see that look on your face, Wes. You're thinking, I'm going to rub it in their face to get this right, which you can totally do because you're.
Oh man. All right, let's talk about the final one of the weekend. Kentucky 3-5, 1-5 in the SEC at number 7. Tennessee 6-1, 3-1 in the SEC, 7:45 on the SEC network. As we mentioned before, Kentucky is an enigma. No idea what to expect at all from them. I think being at home for Tennessee helps, and this one's is a big factor. I'm going to have to go with the Vols because of that and just the general struggles for Kentucky. I got Tennessee here 31-17. Jesse?
Kentucky has no identity. I don't know what's happening in Lexington. I have no idea. They're playing in Neyland. They're playing at night. This is just not going to be fun if you're wearing blue. I'm picking the Vols in this one big time, 35-13.
All right. Matt?
I want to point out that Kentucky right now is averaging 19 points a game. They are averaging roughly 300 yards a game. They've got about 4 yards per play. They have struggled mightily. They've got 11 turnovers in their games. They are not doing great. They've had 7 interceptions. They've had 10 fumbles, or 5 fumbles. This is a Tennessee defense that eats people's souls. James Pierce has been an absolute monster. He doesn't have a ton of stats like some people are looking at, but Kentucky showed last week they can't do much offensively. So I think this is going to be a feast moment for the defense. I also think this is the game where Tennessee's offense finally starts to click. We saw a little bit of it in that second half against Bama. I think this is the game where everything kind of gets lined up. And I think Tennessee's going to be really hard to beat going through November. So I like the Vols here. It's also a blackout game, and I don't know if you've seen the new unis. They're really nice. So I like the Vols here big, 49-14.
All right. Well, that does it for the upcoming games of this upcoming week. And so take a listen to the music, and we'll get out of here.
I recognize that.
If you would like to contact us, please email us at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are at Pigskins and Pageantry on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Don't forget, we are at PPSCC Podcast on X. And we are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and review. We'd love those 5 stars. Increase our chances of having conversations with fantastic people such as yourselves. Yeah.
Wes, did you say X or did you say Twitter?
I don't know. What did I say, Matt?
I gotta start paying more attention, man.
I did say X. It's all
Sorry,
good.
go ahead.
I did say X, so you feel
I
free to
missed
throw Twitter out there. But yeah, big games coming up. Until next time, this is Wes. Go Dogs.
Y'all, we have a bye this week. It's gonna be so nice to rest and relax. So happy Halloween, happy Nick Saban's birthday. Roll Tide.
It's a blackout game in Neyland at night. You know, that means that things are going to get nuts. I want Kentucky blood! Beat the Wildcats. Go Vols.